Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Christopher Phillips. I'm a first year at the college. My question is for Mr. Stelter. You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax. They pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist. And yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative? All the mistakes of the mainstream media, and CNN in particular, seem to magically all go in one direction. Are we expected to believe that this is all just some sort of random coincidence, or is there something else behind it?
That was a college student there grilling CNN anchor Brian Stelter on why the Liberal network is just as guilty on perpetuating disinformation as any other media that has been accused of doing so. Brian Stelter was a guest on the panel at the University of Chicago's discussion on disinformation and the erosion of democracy. Christopher Phillips, who was a college freshman at the university, called out the panel for labelling Fox News as a purveyor of disinformation, but argued CNN is right up there too. He listed a few examples, including when CNN pushed the Russia collusion hoax, when they pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax, and of course, most notably, when the network dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop story. Mr. Phillips launched into a blistering argument of whether it's time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead if the mainstream media continue to act as cheerleaders for the regime, being the Democrat Party. Take a look at how the CNN journalist answered the question, arguing that Christopher Phillips is watching a different channel to the one that he watches.
Too bad, it's time for lunch.
You have 30 seconds.
No, I mean,
Brian.
there's a clock that says 30 seconds, but I think my honest answer to you, and I'll come over and talk in more detail after this, is that I think you're describing a different channel than the one that I watch. But I understand that that is a popular right-wing narrative about CNN. I think it's important, when we talk about shared reality and democracy, all these networks, all these news outlets have to defend democracy. And when they screw up, admit it. But when Benjamin Hall, the Fox correspondent, was wounded in Ukraine, the news crews at CNN and the New York Times stopped what they were doing, and they tried to help. They tried to help him get out of the country. They tried to find the dead crew members. That's what news outlets do. That's how they actually do work together, to your question about sharing those kinds of connections and trust. We don't talk about it enough, though. We don't share that reality about how that happens. And with regards to the regime, I think you mean the President Biden. The last time I spoke with a Biden aide, we yelled at each other. So that's the reality of the news business that people don't see, that people don't hear. They imagine that it's a situation that simply is not. But I think your question, it speaks to the failure of journalism to show our work and show the reality of how our profession operates. We have a lot of work to do, I think.
As the Hunter Biden story finally gains momentum in the media, another college student took aim at a journalist for failing to report on the story at the time. Hunter Biden's laptop has been a source of speculation since the 2020 election, when the New York Post first reported the contents on the damning computer. Liberal media ignored the story, passing it off as Russian disinformation, with the federal election just 1 month away. Big Tech also censored it, with Twitter even shutting down the New York Post's account for 16 days and forbidding any users from sharing the newspaper's story. A few weeks ago, the New York Times finally verified the incriminating emails found on the laptop 17 months after the story was first published, only to prompt Liberal media to follow in suit and begin reporting on the president's son. Today, Atlantic journalist Anne Applebaum was grilled by the student who questioned her on why she wrote a piece in 2020 about how those who live outside the Fox News bubble do not need to learn this stuff about Hunter Biden. The student referenced a poll carried out by the Media Research Center, which found 16% of those surveyed would not have voted for Joe Biden at the federal election had they known about the Hunter Biden story. He questions Ms. Applebaum on whether the media acted inappropriately when they dismissed the story as Russian disinformation.
I'm Daniel Schmidt. I'm a freshman at the University of Chicago. My question is for Ms. Applebaum. So in 2020, you wrote, "Those who live outside the Fox News bubble do not, of course, need to learn any of the stuff about Hunter Biden," referring to his laptop, of course. A poll later after that found that if voters knew about the content of the laptop, 16% of Joe Biden voters would have acted differently. Now, of course, we know a few weeks ago the New York Times confirmed that the content is real. Do you think the media acted inappropriately when they instantly dismissed Hunter Biden's laptop as Russian disinformation? And what can we learn from that in ensuring that what we label as disinformation is truly disinformation and not reality?
My problem with Hunter Biden's laptop is I think totally irrelevant. I mean, it's not whether it's disinformation or, I don't think the Hunter Biden's business relationships have anything to do with who should be president of the United States. So I don't find it to be interesting. I mean, that would be my problem with that as a major news story.